Information Station, 1370 WOCA.
WOCA.
All right, 8 minutes after 10 o'clock. Nice looking Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. You know, Robin, if we were to go to, let's see, what could we go to? We could go to a juggling show. We could see a juggler. We say, wow, that guy's a really good juggler. Or you can watch American Idol and you can say, wow, that is a really talented singer. Or anybody who can have some kind of a performance art where there it is in front of you and you know right away that this is a very skillful person. But when you have a skillful writer, you really have to read the book in order to see skillful writing. And Steve Burt exemplifies that. He's in the studio right now, and we are going to hear about the books. And I think one of the things that impressed me most about his writing is the fact that, well, I don't know that I'm that good at this in the first place, but it just didn't seem like it was the same writer. It was like he's got the ability. It's almost like the musician that can play a country song and then a classical song, and it's hard to believe it's the same guy. I hope that's taken as a compliment. I don't know. Anyway, I was impressed by it. Steve Burt is the storyteller of the heart. He's a contributor to the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. He writes for Reader's Digest. He's an internationally award-winning author, and I think he lives in Ocala. He's in the studio with us right now. He's going to be one of the featured authors at the 2013 Book Feast author event happening a week from Saturday, April 13th at the Marion County Public Library headquarters. Got a load of books here from him to talk about, but let's get to meet Steve Burt himself. Turn around and say hi, make sure my microphones are turned on, and Steve's wife is here as well. So good morning, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Good morning. It's good to be on.
Have I met you before?
No, you haven't. My wife, Jolyn, who's in the studio with us, she's a retired middle school teacher, and I'm a retired minister, and we just recently moved down from Vermont, and we live in the Villages, but we're in the Marion County part of the Villages.
Oh, is that
so
right?
That's why we're in the Marion County's the Book Feast thing. Yep.
And as a minister, I've often thought this about pastors, is that you write for the sermon every week.
That's right.
So,
it gives you practice like you're writing about the equivalent of a short story every week. It's good discipline.
Okay, and so have you ever compiled those sermons in books?
I've had a number of books of sermons out, too.
Really? Because I think that would be a wonderful idea. I would love if the pastor of the church I go to was to publish a book. Sometimes, you fall asleep, you don't miss part of them,
Right.
But anyway, thank you for coming in, and I hope you took it as a compliment that you've got that rare ability to write and sound and have a different voice is, I guess, the best way to say that in another book.
Well, when I started writing a long time ago in second grade, but when I first started writing books, I did church leadership books, not just sermon collections, and I was a national small church consultant. So I wrote around the country on planes and did conventions, and then I moved over to writing what I call touchy-feely stuff, sensitive material for like Chicken Soup for the Soul series, Family Circle magazine. And then I started writing other short stories. And then I switched over and started writing ghost stories and weird tales, like Twilight Zone kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And then got lucky on that and was the runner-up to Harry Potter for the Bram Stoker Award, which is the world's top award for horror writers. I was in the young readers category.
Wow.
So, and then the following year, I won it. I actually was in with Dean Koontz and Clive Barker and won it. So I'm the only ordained minister to ever be nominated for and then to win the Bram Stoker Award, named for the guy who did Dracula.
Oh,
Wow.
nice. Very good. Wow, that is awesome. Very impressive. And did you move here from somewhere else?
We did. We most recently lived in Rhode Island, but we're both Vermonters. Actually, Jolyn grew up in Florida. She's a Lakeland girl.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So
and I'm originally from eastern Long Island, but we've spent most of our lives in Vermont and New England.
So you convinced him to move to Florida, huh?
I did.
Not a bad decision, right? It's a nice place to live. Is it a nice place to write, or does that not matter?
Well, we've only been here for about 7 weeks, so I haven't had a chance to
very
find
new.
out yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm still doing my duties, putting pictures on the walls and throwing down rugs and, moving furniture around and stuff like that. And then we've had grandchildren this week, and we had grandchildren last week, from Colorado one week, from New York another week. So we haven't had a chance to settle down and start writing yet. I
Well,
expect
that-
to soon.
Well, that's what happens when you move to Florida. All of your relatives will come down, and it's a wonderful opportunity because you will get such inspiration from that. All of the observations that they would have that you might not have on scenarios.
Well, we just had a series of books come out for young adults. It's young adult paranormal mysteries and thrillers, and it's called the Freaks series, Freeks. And Freak Camp won a bunch of awards, and then Freak Show won a bunch of awards. So the third book, by coincidence, maybe, is set in Florida. So we'll set it in this area rather than in Maine, where the first two were set. So we've already been out scouting out Casadega, which is the medium capital of the world.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
As opposed to
scary
the
down
extra
there.
large capital, which is where I go for clothing. Yeah. So, as a minister, when you're writing paranormal stories,
Yep.
do you write them differently than somebody who might not have a religious background? You know what I mean?
I don't
Do you
think
approach the
so.
subject differently?
I,
No?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I'm not bringing a lot of theology into it. I'm not trying to proselytize. I'm
Right,
not trying
right.
to get any kind of a message across. So people say they have a Christian slant. Well, no, they're just a plain, fun mystery suspense thing. Kids in peril.
But that is probably, I don't know if baggage is the right word, but that's probably the baggage that it comes with being a pastor. We know another pastor who would love to be a stand-up comic. And for a while, Robin was with the Florida Film Commission. So he heard about this place called the Florida Film Commission, had no idea Robin was in it, and thought, okay, I'm going to go to this meeting. Nobody's going to know I'm a pastor, and I can be the stand-up comic.
Yep.
And he walks in. Robin says, "Hey, Pastor Snyder, how you doing?"
Blew his cover
So
real quick.
it's just all of a sudden yeah. So does that happen to you too?
It does. It doesn't happen as much down here because most people don't know that I'm a retired minister, and they don't see me in a church setting right now. I'm just, mostly in a writing mode right now, or I will be in a writing mode soon. So
I started off the introduction by mentioning people who have an instantly recognizable skill. In order to recognize the skill of a writer, you have to start reading a little bit, and then you actually have to read more than one book to really see it, I think.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of time to recognize that. The juggler. Okay, you got it. You're very good at this, but in writing, it takes a while. And yet, once it's established, people attach themselves to you. They follow you. In other words,
They do, yeah,
And so, have you had that happening with the successes you've had in the different?
I have to a limited degree. I'm what's called a mid-list author. So my next door neighbor, Stephen King, when I lived in Maine, when I was in seminary, he just hit it big back in 1979, 1980. And he is not a mid-list author like I am. He's got a huge following.
No, I would
there's
say,
there's
yeah.
a big difference. But even so, like being a radio personality, being a writer is, you don't have your face out there a lot. So there are a lot of people who could run into Stephen King at an airport and not recognize him. And plenty of people who will run into me at an airport and not know that I'm an award-winning writer.
Yeah.
Just like they wouldn't recognize you.
The 4 books that Lee Schwartz was kind enough to leave with us to peruse, they each have their own different style, but each one encapsulates the reader. Each one makes you feel part of the story.
You've got more than 4 books there. She gave you 4 either books or collections.
Okay.
So you've got one that is Unk's Fiddle, which is sort of chicken soup kind of stories,
Right.
inspirational. There's a Christmas collection that was all stories I did for Christmas Eve candlelight services called A Christmas Dozen. Then you've got a 4-pack of short story collections there.
Yeah.
Which is
It's
wonderful.
4 different books. It's Odd Lot, Even Odder, Oddest Yet, and Wicked Odd, which is the way we talk in New England. We say wicked odd, meaning very, very, very odd. The third one in there won the Bram Stoker Award. And
The
then you
Freak
have
Camp.
one in there, another couple of books there, Freak Camp and
Yeah.
Freak Show, which are the psychic and paranormal gifted kids who are children in peril. They're heading off to this camp in Maine when they're abducted by a crazy man and have to figure out how to work together, make
Oh,
good
wow.
moral choices, and learn to use their powers together and share their powers and get out of their jam that they're in.
Well, I want to be fair to the book, so we get a little taste of the story in the books. But I want to ask a quick question. You mentioned earlier, you said we don't know how writing is going to be here because you're just here 7 weeks. Does that imply that Jolyn is a writer?
Jolyn is not a writer. She's a retired middle school teacher.
Well, I knew that
she's
part.
Also my main editor.
Ah.
I have about 5 editors, but she's the primary one. So when it comes rolling off the printer, a new chapter, she reads it and hacks it up. She puts a red pencil to it, and she's the one, because she's a middle school teacher, who says, girls don't talk that way.
Oh, wow. That's great insight.
So really, I do
Because
the
we
main
would
writing.
make that mistake, wouldn't we, as guys?
She
We
would,
wouldn't.
yeah, and she will rewrite some sections for me. So it's a collaborative process. I do most of it, but she's also heavily involved in it.
Can I get you in on this just for a second? I want to ask you something.
Okay.
When he's writing this paranormal stuff, does he become freaky?
Well, he's always a little strange.
Oh! Oh, no. Oh, no.
No, he doesn't. And it's fun for me because having taught school and graded papers forever, it's a very normal thing for me to take his work, as I do his sermons when he's preaching.
Oh, really?
He'll give me his sermons, and I'll go through and say, too much information, you know.
Oh, wow.
And then with the stories, I also will take them and say, boring, you know, or you need to.
Is it a hard pill to swallow for you?
It is. I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. It was tougher in the beginning, but now I'm a lot better at taking criticism because I know it'll help the final product.
Okay, so you can pull yourself out of it and maybe see it objectively and say, well, it actually made the story better. Can you see that?
Sometimes, yeah. And then there are some points that I'll fight for. I'll say,
Yes.
I think you're wrong on this. I know what
Yes.
you're saying, but I think you're wrong. It needs to stay
Yes.
the way it is.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense, and,
Yeah.
and that seems to be what we should be doing with our editors, right?
Yeah.
Not that I have
or
one,
our
but,
spouses
yeah.
and our partners.
I
Yeah.
put myself in your group for a second there. I don't belong there, but I mean, if I was in life, we have critiques. In this job, you have critiques. And some of it you say, well, I don't agree with you, and I'm never going to. But otherwise, you say, oh, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I think you're right.
Sure.
That kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Now, when you write all of these different genres, do you have one character that's your extremely most favorite, and you have that character pop up in a cameo in all of the other genres?
I don't cross genres with the characters. However, this character, a couple of characters started out in the short stories, which were written between 1996 and 2005. So a couple of the characters showed up in different short stories, and then later on showed up in the novels. The Freak Camp and Freak Show are novels, and I did not know that they were going to show up there. So your favorite characters, I think you do find ways to bring them back into something, but they haven't shown up over in the Christmas stories or over in the chicken soup stories.
I think that one of his interesting things is that Steve has a very good sense of humor, very sharp, and he has a character in Freak Camp and Freak Show who has his same sense of humor. And I keep saying to him, you need to develop this character, you need to come out in this character more, because it's just such a natural thing. You're reading along and say, I can't believe that kid said that. Well, that's exactly the kind of thing Steve would say to me.
I got you.
in a
Okay.
And this is a kid who can have out-of-body experience, too. He can travel out of body, called astral projection.
Yeah, I've had out-of-money experience. Is it similar? Yeah. So it sounds like Jolyn is trying to persuade. With the one question that every radio person asks every author: are any of these characters you? And it's almost a question we avoid because it seems almost cliche. But since what Jolyn said, I have to ask you: is that what she's basically saying? Is that sounds like you already? Make it more you.
I believe that the character she's talking about, whose name is Harley, he said my last name is Davidson. It's really not. But he wears a Harley Davidson cap, and his father's name is David, so he says, I'm Harley David's son.
Yes.
And travels out of body. But he's a witty kid, but I don't think that he's fully me. He's got maybe my sense of humor and some other stuff. But then there's another kid named Charlie who is a precognitive dreamer. He dreams something, then it he forgets it, and then it starts to happen. He realizes he knows what's going to happen next just in time to change the outcome. So I think there's a lot of a lot of me in Charlie too. But then some of the girls also, there's one girl who's just got a big mouth, and she's right out there in front of her friends all the time, always challenging the bad guy. And, I like to think that that's me too. Or maybe it's just a projection. I don't know. So a little of me in each of those characters, I think.
Do you do guest speaking at writers' groups? Because sometimes authors aren't really don't really have the courage to go out there on their own, and they join the group to feel a part of something. Do you go to the writers groups and encourage the writers that they do have a voice and they need to get this inner courage to share?
I do. I need to get started doing that down here. But I've done writers groups with colleges. We've done. We just had a Skype interview, which is an interesting way to do it, with a mothers and daughters, middle school daughters, group, a reading group, a club from Tarrytown, New York. Now, we couldn't be in Tarrytown, New York, but being down here in the villages, we can just sit there in front of the computer, and they can sit in front of theirs, and we're talking to 25 or 30 daughters and mothers, which is a great way to be involved in with your kids, too. But so part of their questions over the hour's interview were about the books. They had all read Freak Camp together. But part of their questions were about the next book, about writing, about the paranormal. But some of them had questions about writing. Not all of them want to write, but a couple of them had writing-related questions.
Is
so
it
we're encouraging in that?
divided equally of the boys and girls, or in
Not in that group, because it was mothers and daughters.
in that group? Okay,
Yeah, in that
but I mean your readership is,
I think-
especially the young readers' books.
The characters in the books are an equal number of males and females, and they both have strengths and they both have weaknesses. So it's not like the boys dominate or the girls dominate.
Yeah, yeah.
And the readership tends to be about equal, I think. We have a lot of girl readers, though, but probably maybe 55-45. So they're good books for boys or for girls.
So do you encourage parents to read your books before they let their young readers read them, or is this okay for this to be on a school
Well, they
reading
don't-
list?
These are what we call, in the horror genre, we call them horror light. Really what I'm writing is mystery, suspense, thrillers. So I write in the young adult category. A lot of adults read them, but I really write in the young adult category. So you won't find blood, gore, violence, or sex. And Jolyn usually, if we're at an arts and crafts show and selling books there and autographing books, or at some kind of a writer's event, she will be the one to tell the parents and the grandparents or the librarians that line. She'll say that you're not going to find the blood, the gore, the violence, and the sex. If you want all that stuff, turn to the Bible, because there's a lot more in the Bible
There you
than
go.
there is in Reverend Burt's stuff.
But I'm guessing from your perspective, Jolyn, when you read a manuscript that he's written,
Yes.
that's intended for young adults.
Yeah.
If he crosses that line, it's a little bit maybe too adult, whether it's any of the above categories. That's got to be where you step in and say, I like this part, but it changes the.
He has never written anything like that I've had to cross out. He knows. I know what he writes, and I always say to the parents, grandparents, this is a safe book.
Right.
If you get
right.
anything from him, he goes right up to the edge, but he doesn't go over the line.
Well, we've
So
had
that-
we've
yeah.
had romance novelists on who have that same
Yes.
ethical
Right.
approach.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's
Yes.
unethical
Right.
to write sexy
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, but we've had them on, and there's a certain demographic of readers out there that
Yes.
appreciate that. They say, you know what, I love the romance novels, but I'm really turned off by the ones that get very graphic.
Right.
Unlike
Yes.
me. No, I'm just
Yes.
but
Yes.
but I mean they will.
Yes.
I mean they
Yes.
will say I love this kind of stuff, and that's why these ladies write, and they are mostly ladies
Right.
that write that
Yes.
stuff. So
Well, we go to craft fairs and we sell the books. And what works is for me to be the salesperson. And Steve is the author back there. And I say, this is a great book. And I can say to grandmothers or parents, this is safe. You can buy this. And the best thing to do is you read it first and then have them read it and you discuss it. Because then you're going to feel better about it. But there is absolutely nothing in here that you need
is
to
there a
worry
message
about.
in the books?
Actually, there is.
Yeah.
The message, particularly in the Freaks series, is a message about kids working together. They're different, and they call themselves the Freaks, F-R-E-E, not F-R-E-A. They call themselves the Freaks, which is different than having other people call you a freak. They take that on as a positive thing, saying we are different, and we're trying to learn to deal with that, but we also are different, and we work to solve mysteries. We work to help people. We work together. We make good decisions along the way in that process. So they do detective work as well as using their powers. So in these two books, you'll see them use their powers, but they don't solve the final climax, the final confrontation using their powers so much as they do cooperation and bravery.
I have developed a whole teacher's guide for Freak Camp.
Oh.
The first one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just a question about the actual the writers thing. What's it called again? The book feast.
Book feast.
I'm just wondering, and maybe you don't know this, but I'm wondering if Lee or anybody at the library groups authors so that I'm going to go to one area and it's going to be science fiction, one area it's going to be historical. Does he do that, or are you just kind of?
I don't know, and he may have a difficulty with that because you'd say, well, Steve Burt's book comes under YA, young adult.
Yeah, right.
And they may have a group for young adults, but then they may also have one that's mystery fiction, and it could come under
Right,
that, or
right,
thrillers. So I don't know how they're going to set
Is
it
this
up.
the first year you've done this?
It is, yeah.
Well, I think it's only the second year they've done it.
Yes.
And it was wonderful last year. Robin and I went toward the end because we had something else earlier in the day. Same thing is happening this year. We'll be there toward the end, but it seemed like it was very successful. And oh God, my goodness, I can't tell you how many of the authors were there that had already been guests on this show. Not just because of the book feast, but because we just invite authors all the time. So
Yeah.
Another wonderful thing about your books is that it enables the child that has a problem reading or enunciating, they can read that book out loud, and then they also can, while they're reading, they can also be entertaining their younger siblings and encourage the younger siblings to learn how to read, because books are absolutely wonderful. You can go
Yeah.
anywhere and be anything in a book.
One of the things that we did, a shift that we made on this new novel series, The Freaks, is we purposely did short chapters of about 3 pages, and each one ends in a cliffhanger. And the reason we did that is we found that some kids who are middle schoolers will look at an 18-page opening chapter and decide not to read the book because it's just
really?
too daunting. But they'll read a 3-pager, and then they'll get the cliffhanger, and they'll take the next 3 and the next 3. And by the end of the night, before they're ready to go to sleep, they've read 18 pages, the same they would have read in an opening chapter,
Oh,
but they
nice,
chose
nice.
not to.
Wow.
So this seems to be a good trick, and we picked it up from the author James Patterson. He writes short chapters in the young adult.
I
too.
love the fact, by the way, that you're saying we. I mean, you recognize the team that you are. It's not, you know.
I don't think I ever say I when
That's
she's
wonderful.
around.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we knew we would love you. We knew just
yeah.
from what we were able to detect from your writing that we would love you. And so you will be at the Authors Feast on Saturday. Now, this is only a 3-hour event, right, Robin?
Yes.
11 till 2. So
Yes.
if you're going to mark it down on your calendar, don't forget to mark the time down. This is from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m., a 3-hour event over at the library on April 13th, which is a week from Saturday. It's the second annual book feast. It's the 2013 book feast. Lee Schwartz is the one who brought it to our attention, but I know there's a lot of people involved with putting this whole thing on. Nice to get to know both of you. Thank you for coming. There's another author, by the way, Alan Ansorge is his name. He lives in the Villages, right?
Yes.
And he's a snowbird. I think he's there now, right?
Yes, he
Because
is.
he's going to be at the book feast also.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Is he
What?
is he going to be a guest?
Next Wednesday, yes.
Oh, he's coming in Wednesday. Okay.
One of the most wonderful things that you do, sir, is inspire. You inspire people to read, you inspire people to write, and also utilize all their other creative forces, and that's really
Well,
to
thank
be
you.
commended.
Thank you. The other place that we inspire is they call me the Christmas Story Pastor, and I read stories from my Christmas Stories book in programs. We've done thousands of churches all around New England, and now that we're in Florida, we'll probably do it here in Florida during the Advent season.
Oh,
That would be
Yeah,
wonderful.
from a Christmas story.
Maybe we'll have you come in at Christmas time and read a story.
I've done many on the radio too. Yep,
By then, we won't be here, though. We'll be at the mall, the Paddock
Yeah.
Mall.
we travel.
Actually, that might be closer for you from the Villages. Thank you. Thank you both for coming in. Good
Our
luck with
pleasure.
everything you're doing. Don't be strangers. Come back for the next book or next event, all right?
Thanks so much for
Thanks.
having us
Thank
on.
you.
We'll take a little break, and we will be right back.
Alice! Alice!
Yes, George.
Did you know I'm a truck driver now?
What?
I called Devon Self Storage at 8730777, and John and Mike now have a moving truck.
Are you cleaning out the garage?
Well, I do have time because Devon Self Storage is open late, and they're right across from